This is The Guardian.
Hello, I'm Faye Carruthers and welcome to The Guardian Women's Football Weekly. To me, to you, to me, to you. The tussle for the WSL title takes another twist. Chelsea lost, then Manchester City lost, then Chelsea won. That's the week in a nutshell, basically, but it doesn't even begin to cover the drama. And after Emma Hayes waved the white flag on Wednesday, by Sunday, after smashing 8 past Bristol City, she declared it's not, insert swear word, over. We'll round up the rest of the weekend's WSL action and check on the promotion and relegation picture lower down the pyramid. We'll also be previewing Sunday's FA Cup final. Plus, we'll take your questions, of course. And that's today's Guardian Women's Football Weekly. Women's Football Weekly is supported by Google Pixel, the only phone engineered by Google, an official mobile phone of Arsenal Football Club, Liverpool Football Club and the England teams. Google Pixel's working with the FA, Arsenal FC and Liverpool FC to close the visibility gap between men's and women's football with the formation of Pixel FC, a collective of next-generation creators and presenters dedicated to covering the women's game. They'll have exclusive access to players, additional resources and content creation opportunities to give women's football the visibility it deserves. Search Google Store to find out more. What a panel we have today. Suzy Rack, are you feeling better? Just in time for your team to throw a spanner in City's title works?
Loads better. And yeah, always good to come back for a nice, big, lively Arsenal win, isn't it?
Oh, yeah. I know your timing is impeccable. Anita Asante, I expected like a sachet and some, proper moves coming on as you walked in. How you doing?
I'm very well, thank you. Didn't drop a two-step just yet, but maybe. You'll get to see some moves.
We've got 50 minutes, so I expect that at least by the end. Jenna Schillaci, it must feel like the week leading into Christmas for you at the moment.
Yeah, what a time to be alive for a Spurs fan right now. Spurs women fan, sorry.
Yeah, excellent use of the caveat there. much needed. Listen, the roller coaster that is the Barclays WSL continues after a week of twists and turns. The title race is now going down to the final week. After Liverpool beat Chelsea 4-3 in dramatic circumstances midweek, Emma Hayes conceded the title in her post-match interview. A mere 96 hours later, she was standing on the pitch at Kings Meadow telling her fans, "Let me be clear, it's not over." A lot can change in 4 days. Let's go chronologically and start at the beginning, not the start of the season, but Wednesday night at Prenton Park, where we were served an absolute classic WSL ping pong of a match. It ended Liverpool 4, Chelsea 3, 4 goals in the final 10 minutes, seeing the pendulum swing between the two clubs until the 92nd minute when Gemma Bonner scored the winner on her 150th appearance for the club. I mean, Suzy, I don't even know if it's possible to sum up this match. Can it possibly be described as the game of the season so far?
In terms of, oh my God, yes. In terms of, quality defending and structure to a performance from both teams, no. I don't think either team would look at this game as, a perfect performance. But, in terms of, what it did to everyone's brains, and yes, it's definitely the game of the season. Just thrilling, right? Just so utterly delightful to watch end to end, so many nuances to it. Seeing Chelsea concede that many from set pieces is a real shock as well. You just don't expect Chelsea to sort of drop the ball to that extent at this stage of the season ever. I've said all season, I would just, no matter how it's been looking, I would never, ever, ever bet against an Emma Hayes team in the final third of the season. And here is the moment, and I can't remember another one like it, where, in the closing stages of the campaign, they've dropped the ball a little bit. So that was, surprising and, fun for what it did to everything following.
Unless you're a Chelsea fan. I wouldn't have fancied being a Chelsea fan on Wednesday night, that's for sure. Then when you hear your manager afterwards, I mean, she raised some eyebrows, didn't she, with this post-match interview she gave to Sky. We've won a lot of things, but that's not going to be this year, is what she said. What did you make of those comments, Jenna? Were they the kind of typical Emma Hayes mind games, or did she mean it?
Well, initially I was shocked really by the words that were coming out of her mouth, because what we've always known about Chelsea and her team and Emma Hayes is they never ever give up, do they? And it was kind of really defeatist, especially with games to go. And we know, I don't know if anyone could have predicted of what's happened this weekend, but you know, you're still in with a chance. It's not completely out of your reach. Yes, it's not in your hands, but you know, this is Chelsea they're talking about. So yeah, I was really, really shocked. But then I thought, is she being really clever now and just taking the pressure off of her team? And I think now she might claim that she was doing that. And it wouldn't surprise me at all if she was doing that. But yeah, initially I was so shocked to see Emma Hayes with that defeated attitude, really.
And like heaping the pressure onto City as well, right? Like make them feel like they've won it, like it is theirs. They've got it in their hands, and you know, heap a huge amount of pressure on them ahead of a really, really big game against a big rival. Like you, my instinct was, because she's, you know, had a little bit of pressure on her in recent weeks. Her press conferences haven't exactly been typical Emma Hayes press conferences. Exactly.
Wild,
like I sort of thought, oh mate, like, is she really rattled here? But in hindsight, it is, you know, the most brilliant of mind games. And she knows exactly what she does when she talks to the press. She knows the message she wants to get across. You know, you never know in the heat of the moment whether that is impacting it or whether she's still sort of thinking that way. But yeah, I thought it was genius in the end.
And Emma Hayes, obviously, she has a strategic sort of mindset. She doesn't do anything without a purpose. So, you know, in her mind, she like you're both saying, it was to keep the pressure on Man City, is to take the pressure off her players, to let them go out there in the last few games and play with that, perhaps that bit of pressure off and freedom, to deliver the kind of performance that we saw against Bristol City.
Everyone just lapped it up though, didn't they? They fell right into her trap, if that's what she was going to do, because it was headlines everywhere. And this is the problem, Anita, actually, isn't it, from a Liverpool perspective? Poor Matt Beard, he's pulled off one of the results of the season. And, you know, they have to have all the credit, obviously, what they did at the beginning of the season. You know, they're pushing for a 4th place finish just 2 years after returning to the top division. They weren't brilliant in the first 20 minutes, but they were arguably the better side the rest of the game. How did they get the job done, and how mean is it that actually that's not been the focus at all?
I know, it's Chelsea stealing their limelight as per usual, but no, I think massive credit has to go to Matt Beard and Liverpool this season. You know, they've taken points off Man United, Arsenal, now Chelsea. They know what they're about. They've got a clear identity. They're happy to try and be organised defensively, sit behind the ball. They've got some solid defenders in there that can lay the foundations for them to go on and attack. And we've seen how threatening they are actually in transition moments and those counter-attack moments going forward. But in terms of set pieces, they get it right. They get good quality from their set pieces, and they've got willing players that fight for those balls in the box, and they're alive, and players like Bonner, who are so experienced in those scenarios, that put them on top. And for me, it's a joy to watch. They're a different style compared to a lot of teams in the league, but they're really effective at what they do.
Yeah, they certainly are. And a 4th place finish, if they do make it, would be absolutely incredible. Right, I said we were going in chronological order, didn't I? And with that result, the ball was fully in Manchester City's court. So Chelsea was 6 points behind them going into the weekend. And Gareth Taylor's side knew victory over Arsenal basically would leave them with sky blue ribbons tied at least to one half of the trophy. They came into the match on a 14-game winning streak in the league as well. I mean, that run of form was only equalled by Arsenal back in 2022, and they hadn't lost to the Gunners in their last 6 home meetings. So all the omens, all the stats were in their favour, and they started really well. Lauren Hemp firing her side into the lead her 10th goal of the campaign. It feels like she scored more, but I think it's because she's been involved in so many more goals than that. But Jonas Eidevall's side improved in the second half, eventually found a breakthrough with 2 goals in the 89th and 92nd minute from Stina Blackstenius, flipping the script and leaving the final score Manchester City 1, Arsenal 2. Suzy, big, long-arching question. Where did it all go wrong for City in this game?
They were so good in the first half, like so scintillating, and they didn't make the most of that dominance, right? Like they pressed with this incredible intensity. Arsenal couldn't move the ball for love nor money. The press was so high and energetic, but they didn't make the most of that period. Like they had a few chances to increase their lead and didn't really do it. And then in the second half, that intensity dropped back a bit. Whether that was like, the fact that maintaining that for 90 minutes is really, really difficult because it's a lot of energy to expend. I asked Gareth Taylor about it afterwards, and he said, yeah, a little bit of that, a little bit of like just mentality dropping off as well, and just sort of feeling like you've got to protect what you've got. He also said possibly the weather making it more exhausting because it was really hot to hold on to that press for as long as 90 minutes. So, I think that sort of dip in their pressure in the second half, which just allowed Arsenal a foothold in the game. Then they're attacking towards their huge away contingent, stacked behind the goal. I think that really had an impact as well. And then you've got the fact that they did not build on that 1 goal lead in the first half. So for me, it was their City's sort of almost letting Arsenal back into a game that they should have put to bed in the first half. For me, they should have been 2 or 3 goals up and then being able to ease back off that press and mentally sort of dip into right now we protect would have made a lot more sense. And yeah, kind of rest those legs a little bit after all that pressing. But without Bunny Shaw, are you going to capitalise on those moments in the same way that you would do if she's there? So it's a tough one. You set up one way and hope that you're going to maybe kind of be a couple goals up before you start relaxing a little bit. I say relaxing, I just mean relaxing the press a little bit. Yeah, that's where I think it went wrong for me.
Yeah, they really do miss Bunny Shaw. Worst possible timing, her injury at the end of the season. Let's focus on Arsenal though, Jenna. Sorry, your favourite topic. not a great half, but the introduction of Kim Little at the break and Stina Blackstenius obviously later on really changed the direction of the game. How important were both of those players, particularly when you think there are still these rumours swirling around the Sweden striker's future at the club?
Yeah, I mean, a huge impact they made. And I think the introduction of Kim Little kind of changed the game. I think just that control she brought to the Arsenal team, and Arsenal really grew into that second half and the momentum completely shifted into their favour. And I think you're looking at Man City, they know what's at stake. It's a huge, huge game for them. And ultimately they were punished because they didn't take advantage of that momentum. And I think that Bunny Shaw missing that kind of player that has, changed every game for them and been so effective for them. I think that's where they really let themselves down there. But yeah, for Arsenal, I think that mentality there they put the pressure onto Man City. And I think they could maybe at times you could tell that they were losing control of the game. And for me, I was just really pleased with Blackstenius. I was actually on my way to Stamford Bridge, so I'd left the TV, got in my car, put my earphones on, and then Arsenal are back in the game. So I thought it was done and dusted. So yeah, I mean, to show that fight right up until the end, I think it was huge for Arsenal. And, they had a massive say in this title race, didn't they? And you thought maybe that Man City had got it, but yeah, I'm never say never. And they've really spiced things up now.
I think the super subs, they came in, Ford, Catley, Kim, and brought energy. And it just lifted the whole team. And it had that monopoly effect. Then the momentum swings. Then they're on top. Then they're starting to pin Man City. And Man City don't have that sort of focal point like you would have in a Bunny, with her physical presence as well, to just offer some relief in those moments when they could get onto the ball and stretch the game again. And I think that's what made it really challenging for them. And Arsenal really capitalised on that moment with a bit of quality. And I was actually shocked that Kim wasn't starting this game. And she came in and she literally was like the composer in midfield, dictating the tempo, getting on the ball, doing the things that Arsenal needed in the first half. And that paid off really for them, and in a bit of quality as well from Stina Baxtenius. And then arguably, obviously, I'm sure you're going to ask it, but you could argue, you know, were Gareth Taylor's changes the correct ones? Could he have maybe made different changes as well that would have impacted City potentially differently as well?
Obviously, the focus is on the title race, right? But like, you've got to look at Arsenal. I think there's got to be so many what ifs because they've got the best records. Like, it's so rare that a team who doesn't get the better of those top three go on to win the league, right? And they've got 9 points from their 4 games against City and Chelsea, better than either of those two teams, and are walking away in third, like well out of it from, you know, pretty early on towards the end of the season. So like, there's got to be so many what ifs. Those points dropped to West Ham, Spurs, and I mean, you know, 1 game to Chelsea, but you know, the grand scheme of things, it's those points lost to West Ham and Spurs that have really cost them. And I mean, what a pair of errors, what a lesson. I mean, it's going to be the first time a team has won the league having lost more than 2 games and that didn't get the better of the results against the top 3. It's really interesting.
Yeah, really interesting, but interesting in terms of the competitiveness of the league and how it's evolving. By the way, just 2 substitutions made by Gareth Taylor, Angeldal and Kennedy coming on, whereas Arsenal used all 5 of theirs, and that clearly showed. Really interesting from a different perspective as well. Not just you've got, you know, impactful players on the bench, but this was actually a chance for the Manchester City fans to say goodbye to a club legend. I mean, I know this game didn't necessarily, you know, set itself up for emotion and things like that because there was so much riding on it. But Captain Steph Houghton's retiring from football at the end of the season. She's been at City for a decade. And there was a special tribute at the end of the game. Both sets of players gave her a guard of honour. Gareth Taylor, though, you know, was criticised from some quarters, Ellen White and Ian Wright included, for not bringing her on as a substitute in front of her fans for one last time. This is a question from Sue on X, Anita. What are your views on whether Gareth Taylor should have given Steph minutes at the end of the game? Views seem to be divided. What do you think?
Yeah, I think initially I thought, okay, Gareth has probably gone with Alana Kennedy because he's opted to use her more often across the season. She's had more minutes, than Steph. But for me personally, having known Steph, played with Steph, the leader that she is, the kind of character that she is for this team, I think she would have had the right kind of attitude and the words and everything, the body language to maybe lift her teammates. And I actually think as a defender in the scenarios that they were facing, box defending, I think Steph is the better defender personally. I would have opted to put her in there. But the occasion around her could also benefit the team, you know, because then her teammates are going, Steph's next to us. We want to give her a good send off. We want to, you know, fight to the tooth and nail to make sure that we hold on to this result. You know, it has a psychological impact as well. So I was surprised that he didn't make that decision and capitalize on that as well.
What I found a little bit irritating was the comparison with like the Maramielda, Frank Kirby being given their big farewell versus Steph not being given a big farewell on the pitch, because it was just so different. So, like, situation wise, you know, you're 7, 8, like 5, 6, 7, 8 goals up against Bristol City, already relegated, at home, like able to, you know, sort of bring on those players who are still playing a regular, you know, role, particularly Frank Kirby, in your campaign, versus a player who is barely playing in a massively important game in the title race where the scoreline is so tight. So whilst I sort of sympathetic to the, you know, emotional sentimentality of it, give her minutes, like the game really mattered. And like, I don't think Gareth Taylor is the best tactician in the world or would necessarily get the substitutes right. But like, if they're making a decision to bring on a player that late on, you know, it's a balance, isn't it? Like when you're trying to win a game like that as to who you bring on, and the sentimentality part of it cannot play a role in that. Like, I agree that I think you can have the issue of you know, weighing up the like psychological impact and all that stuff, but at the same time, like it's a football decision to be made right in that moment.
Yeah. Do you think that sub paid off though, Suzy? And it's football sometimes not just about emotion as well. You know, a feeling. You feel players going inside themselves, then they're not communicating. then that impacts the tactical game. That's just my opinion, having played in games. Sometimes you need someone who's going to scream at you, tell you, give you some information, give you some positivity, and that could just be the difference.
Football is all about what ifs. I can tell you that for sure as a Luton Town fan. Basically just sums up football in a small nutshell. And actually there is the argument that they all knew it was their club captain's last home game, last hurrah, so maybe they should have turned on the performance a little bit, a little bit earlier, perhaps, just to throw another opinion in the mix on it. So here we come to the last game in our wonderful, I love a little bit of chronology. Chelsea handed a lifeline by Manchester City. They grabbed it with both hands, didn't they, against already relegated Bristol City on an evening of goodbyes at Kings Meadow. It finished Chelsea 8, Bristol City 0, meaning Chelsea not only came away with 3 points and made themselves within 3 points of the league leaders, they also completely overturned City's +7 goal difference advantage as well. 4 goals for Guru Wrighton, Jenna. I mean, she's been used sparingly by Emma Hayes in recent weeks, but she really delivered when it mattered, didn't she?
She did, yeah. It was a huge performance. I was there and it felt like a really special night from the minute you were walking into Kings Meadow. The crowds were there, the blue flags were up, the DJ it was literally like a festival in there before kickoff. And the minute that final whistle went, you could see the intent from Chelsea, like they'd been given this lifeline and it was relentless, like from the first whistle. I actually felt for Bristol because actually in the first half, I don't think the scoreline, they actually created some really good chances. Obviously, Chelsea were putting the numbers forward. They were really gun-ho in. The second they scored, they're getting the ball back to the restart. And Chelsea were leaving themselves quite wide open. And Bristol on the counter all season have been quite dangerous. But it's just that final execution in the penalty box. But yeah, they were like those mentality monsters that we're used to seeing Chelsea. You could see they were non-stop. And Guru Wrighton, like you say, she's not really had that much game time this season. Injury at the beginning of the season, but what a performance, and some of her goals that she'd scored. But for me, I was so impressed with Aggie Beaver-Jones as well, for such a young player. Again, scoring, starting, just going to be a top player. But come half time, obviously Frank Kirby and Meredith Michelle come on, and it was, yeah, they started again. I think they dropped off towards the end of the second half, and we were saying, can they keep this up, this kind of intensity? The way they were moving the ball, it was one touch. It was like ticky-tacky football at times. Yeah, Bristol couldn't get near them, and they did. They started off the second half again. And I think the icing on the cake would have been Frank Kirby getting that goal, and she had some chances, and you could see towards the end, the players were trying to set her up, and it just wasn't coming in. I think there was a potential penalty, possibly, and Frank Kirby was in the ref's face, but it didn't get given. But what a performance. And it got to, I think, 6-0, and the fans wanted more, 7-0, 8-0, and even when the ref put 6 minutes up, you felt there was more coming for added time. But yeah, what a performance. And yeah, it was quite an emotional night down there, actually. They then did the send-off for Emma Hayes and Kirby and Michelle. And yeah, it was an unbelievable game. I couldn't believe what I was witnessing at one point. It was just, I don't think I've seen anything like it.
Yeah, it's amazing what an atmosphere. And we know what Kings Meadow can bring anyway, but, it just felt like all the stars were aligning for sure. But let's take a minute to talk about Aggie Beaver-Jones, Suzy, because 4 goals in 2 games. It takes her tally to 11 for the season. Lauren James is the only England player to have scored more than her. How important is it for Chelsea as they move into this new era next season that one of their academy players is doing so well? I mean, she's got to be knocking on Serena Wiegman's door as well, hasn't she?
Oh yeah, it has to be. But I thought the interesting thing for me was after that Liverpool game when Emma did her her post-match press with her arm around Aggie, like pulling her into frame, because I think that for me, like, people thought it was weird, but it sums up what I think Emma Hayes' mentality has been this season, which is, she probably knows she's going way before it was announced, but like from the point at which she was announced, I think there's been a one eye on obviously winning as a quadruple and as many trophies as possible, and another eye on the team she leaves behind. And I think the point she was making in bringing Aggie into that that, like, you know, chat with her was, yes, the season's done, but look at what Chelsea have got here. Like, there is a lot to go with. You know, it's a very young squad, even with the likes of Kirby and Mielda going there, players that have been on the fringes, you know, obviously big injury problems for a while, you know, with, like you say, Lauren James, but, you know, Hannah Hampton in goal, you know, Millie Bright and Natalie Bjorn, still a, you know, defensive partnership that could go on for quite some time. Guru Wrighton's still, you know, young and, you know, no signs of easing off at all. Like, there's actually a really, really strong, Erin Cuthbert coming into her own this season in the middle. There's a really strong group of players there that are being left behind, and like Aggie is a really, really exciting prospect. And in a way, you know, like, it's, if Sam Kerr hadn't got injured, if Ramirez hadn't got injured, if Mia Fisher hadn't got injured, would she have had this opportunity? Like, probably not, right? And so that's like the nice side of injury, is you get to see players really take their moment and run with it.
Yeah, and obviously I work with Aggie at the under 23s, and I think what you're seeing with her is the fact that she may not have got those opportunities, as you said, with those injuries, but she's grasped it. And that's testament and credit to her mentality and ability to sort of handle the expectation and take responsibility in those moments. And that, for me, that's the positive thing, and seeing her growth, you know, in that role as a number 9, is actually being clinical at the end of those scenarios in those games as well.
What's she like as to coach? What's she like as a young player to be on the grass with?
You know what? She's such a lovely girl on and off the pitch in terms of her personality, her energy. She works tirelessly. She works so hard. She wants the information. She takes it on board, and she's hungry. You know, and if things don't happen, she's disappointed, and that's the sort of player and character that you get. And I think, you know, I've seen her in certain situations across the season for the 23s and not score in those 1v1 scenarios or in those box situations. But to see her do it at Chelsea just shows how much she's taken it on board and growing across the season. And I've actually been an important part of Chelsea this season.
For me, what I've been really impressed about with all the young players, you've got Nuska Nagabiva-Jones, Carter, James. I think they've really stepped up this season when those senior players, key players, you know, these superstars, Sam Kerr, Bright, Ramirez are out injured, but you've actually got these players that are stepping up, and they've had to play in some huge games that have made a huge impact. So for me, I've been really impressed that they've got that, you know, that strength and depth in their squad, but actually they're very young, exciting prospects. So actually the future of Chelsea is still looking bright, even without Emma Hayes.
Yeah, and also without, you know, 2 stalwarts of the club as well. You've all mentioned it, but a formal announcement was made last week from both Maren Mjelde and Fran Kirby that they're going to be leaving the club after 7 and 9 years, respectively. Is it possible to quantify what both those players have done for the club, Anita?
I'm not sure it is. I'm really not. Maren, you know, is an unbelievable leader. She's so considered in everything that she does. She's well liked among everybody from players to staff. She's shown up in so many pivotal moments for Chelsea across the years. She is a sort of the woman of steel when it comes to those penalty scenarios that we've seen her score time and time and again. And, you know, it's hard to sort of imagine them both not being at the club. And in terms of Fran, you know, she's just always been such a special player, a player that I have enjoyed playing with. Hated, you know, training against her because of her ingenuity and her creativity and her ability to just get away from players and assist and score some incredible goals as well. But she's grown so much as well in terms of her confidence, especially from a sort of communication standpoint and taking presence and trying to be more of a leader, I think, in the dressing room as well. You know, for me, Fran Kirby is synonymous with Chelsea. So it's hard to really imagine her not being there, but her contribution is massive for the club, and will definitely be missed.
Yeah, we'll talk about what might be next for Fran Kirby in particular in next week's pod. I think as we kind of sum up the season. I can't see her wearing any other colour bar Chelsea blue. I know she obviously wears England white, but you know what I mean. It would just be weird. But this is how things stand going into the final week of the season. Manchester City, top on 52 points with a goal difference of 45. Chelsea, 3 points behind them on 49 with a goal difference of 46. But they do have a game in hand. I'm looking at you, Jenna Schillaci. They face Spurs away on the 15th before heading to Old Trafford for their finale against Manchester United. 2 tough games to round off Emma Hayes' time at Chelsea. Manchester City, meanwhile, will be facing Carla Ward's Aston Villa at Villa Park. OK, how do we even go with this, bearing in mind this pod's history with predictions? Some making tactical predictions. At least Arsenal aren't involved in the title race, so Suzy can't make any tactical predictions. Right, I'm going to start with you, Jenna, seeing as you're involved in one of the 2 games Chelsea have left.
So I'm going to go with Tottenham are going to win the FA Cup, so will be a no-fit state come the Wednesday. Chelsea... For me, no. See, I can't see Chelsea getting themselves back into this position after they were basically dead and out. I can't see them slipping up again. So I'm going to go with Chelsea, given they've got that game in hand.
I'm going to agree with Jenna. I think it's going to be Chelsea. It's theirs to take now. I just don't see them dropping off here now. They're just going to want to make sure they bring the title home.
Suzy?
Yeah, Chelsea. I think the other aspect of Emma saying, oh, the season's done or whatever it was, like psychologically impacting her players, it demanded that they step up a gear, right? It demanded fight from them. It demanded them to go, no, this isn't over. And then they get the taste from City dropping points at Arsenal. And there's like, I say never bet against them at the end of the season. There's no way that they're going to drop it now. They've got Spurs straight off the back of a cup final as well. Like, they're going to be, better rested, and, either Spurs will have heads down or possibly still be hungover. So, that's almost the best time to be playing them either way. That Man United game is going to be really, really interesting last day of the season. But yeah, I never bet against Hayes' team in the final third of the season ever.
I think Emma Hayes made a really good point at the end of the Bristol game. Chelsea will actually get to rest in between games now, which they probably haven't been able to do for the last 2 months, given the Champions League and all the cups they've been in. So they'll have a rested squad going into both of those fixtures as well.
Right. So basically, Manchester City are going to lift the title because our predictions are terrible, always. I'm pretty sure most of us went for Chelsea at the start of the season as well, so it's just written in the stars it's going to be Man City's. So in that case, just to even things up on the pod and for Emma Hayes' sake, I'm going to say, and you know what I'm trying to do here, I'm going tactically. I'm going to say Manchester City are going to lift the title, just so we've got a bit of balance. Right, that's it for part 1. In part 2, we'll look at the rest of the Barclays WSL action, and we'll look ahead to next weekend's FA Cup final. Welcome back to part 2 of the Guardian Women's Football Weekly. Let's take you through the rest of the weekend's Barclays WSL results, shall we? Liverpool completed a superb week with back-to-back victories, beating Manchester United at Prenton Park. It finished Liverpool 1, Manchester United 0, thanks to a first-half injury goal from Jenna Clark. It's been quite the week for Matt Beard's side. Suzy, we mentioned him earlier on. He got himself sent off at the weekend, but I mean, that's not that important, actually, when he saw his side leapfrog their rivals to move into 4th with just 1 game to play. But from a Manchester United point of view, they must have been disappointed with their performance, despite Mark Skinner saying they created chances.
Oh, yeah. Obviously, if you had said to Manchester United at the start of the season that they would be finishing potentially in 5th with Liverpool having leapfrogged them just before the end of the season, they'd be hugely frustrated. They've got the FA Cup final coming up. For me, that's the only thing that saves Mark Skinner, if it does it even then. I don't know if that's enough, because they looked pretty clueless, I thought. They didn't really have a plan for how to get past Liverpool. Few good chances, I'm thinking Ella Toons in particular, they should have put away. But other than that, I mean, they're just labouring without much direction, I feel. It just doesn't seem to be going right for them. I think the cup final is going to be really, really interesting, because I wonder if it's a psychological thing, whether it's minds and focus is already on that game. But you would like to think that, you know, going up against Liverpool for a Manchester United team with the chance that they could overtake you in fourth would be enough motivation to put thoughts of a cup final to sort of one side for a week. But if that is the case, then that's a big problem because, like, if it is just the fact that they just weren't very good and a bit directionless, then that is a bit of a concern.
Yeah, we'll talk about the cup final in a minute, but let's talk Spurs and Everton, because it was a goal fest at Walton Hall Park on Saturday. It finished Everton 2, Tottenham 2. Spurs fighting back from 2 goals down to return with a valuable point and secure 6th place. Jenna, I'm really sorry to put you in this position, but can we just talk about the defending in this game? All 4 goals stemmed from defensive errors. Frustrating for both managers.
Yeah, I mean, really awful defending at times, and I think actually I think a point apiece, probably a fair result. I think Tottenham going behind again, it's been a kind of common theme of late, but what we're seeing with this Tottenham team now, which we've never seen before, is that they can find a way to get back into games, you know, and they've got those players that can change the game. And this time I think it was Drew Spence that really stepped up, obviously back full fitness again, which is perfect timing for us given the huge weekend we've got coming up. But yeah, woeful defending, and it's something that they've really got to work on, because I think they've conceded so many goals through basically our own mistakes this season. But I think the huge foundation is now going forward. We're also looking really dangerous and we are hurting teams. I think actually we might be disappointed that we didn't get the whole 3 points towards the end, because we definitely had some opportunities to kill the game off. But yeah, I think probably a 1 apiece is a fair result in the end.
Yeah, Aston Villa secured 7th spot on their travels to Crawley. It finished Brighton 0, Aston Villa 1, thanks to a second half goal from Alicia Lehmann. Second in 2 weeks, isn't it, from Lehmann, after having not scored throughout the season. Backdrop, though, to this game, Anita, was the announcement from Aston Villa that Carla Ward's decided to leave after 3 seasons in the job. Obviously, this is your former club. I've got 3 questions for you, if you can wrap them all up. A, were you surprised by her decision? B, will a 7th place finish be something for her to be proud of? And C, where are we going to see her next?
Oh, okay. First question. Yes, I was surprised. I thought, you know, I think Carla has done a really good job with Aston Villa of late. You know, the highest ever finish last season. Yes, they dropped off a little bit this season. They had a lot of injuries to contend with, which I think was really difficult for her to manage. But yeah, I didn't expect her to announce that she was leaving. I understand the reasons why. I think, you know, a job as a manager is really taxing, and it takes a lot of time, dedication and commitment, and time away from family. She has a young daughter she wants to spend more time with. We can all relate. I think to some degree we understand what that's like, and reset a little bit. And in terms of finishing where they finished the season, like I said, I think they've had challenges that have made it difficult. I think they haven't necessarily clicked in the way that everyone had hoped as well. You know, I think Kenza Dali being injured, and Hansen during the season, who started off so well as well, I think slowed their momentum. But ultimately, it's a good foundation for them to still build off, and it happens. You know, they've not been in a WSL an extremely long time. So to get where they were last season, to slightly regress and to pick up again, I think is definitely doable for Villa with the right person, whoever steps in. I don't know who the next contender will be, but it will be very interesting who will be looking to take that project on, I think.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. Do we? So we think that Carla's probably going to take some time out. Can we see her back in football anytime soon?
I think she's going to take some time out. Yeah, I think that makes sense. It sounded that way. It sounded that she needed that reset button. She wants the time to just focus on other things. But I don't think it's the last we'll see of Carla. I think we'll definitely see her back in football at some point down the road.
And wouldn't we all be better for a rest as well?
Oh, God, yeah. Yeah. Oh, by the way, I go on holiday next week. and I'm missing the Women's FA Cup final as a result. But I desperately need a holiday. I will be better for the rest, even though I will have massive FOMO. We are getting to the FA Cup final, I promise you. Just one WSL game to wrap up. It finished West Ham 1, Leicester City 1. Leicester coming from behind to earn that draw. Probably a predictable outcome, maybe, Suzy, for two teams that don't really have anything to play for at this time of the season.
Yeah, I mean, I was thinking about it, and it speaks to the fact that we only have one team get relegated, right? It's so difficult now to come up from the Championship and maintain a challenge, and there's no real jeopardy for teams that are sort of already up and are okay, because you sort of expect the team that comes up to go back down again. So I do think there needs to be a discussion about sort of two teams coming up and two teams going down, or a playoff between 11th and 2nd in the Championship or something like that. I feel like that would make for a far more interesting bottom half of the table towards the end of the season than it currently is, which is a real shame. I thought Leicester were really good, probably deserved that's unfair on West Ham. They deserved a draw because they got a draw. But I think Leicester could have got a winner. They were very, very dominant in that second half, I thought. But yeah, I mean, it just made me reflect on the battle at the bottom, and how sort of unfair it is on any team that comes up, that there's not sort of more at stake for the teams around them.
Yeah, I know what you mean. There's been plenty at stake in the FA Women's National League, and the season came to its conclusion on Sunday after another highly competitive campaign. Let's wrap up how things stand ahead of next year. So much exciting stuff going on further down the pyramid at the moment. Newcastle United and Portsmouth were crowned champions of the FA Women's National League, Northern and Southern Premier respectively, so they're going to both play in the Barclays Championship next season. They'll be replaced by Lewis and Watford, who are relegated from the Championship. So Huddersfield Town, AFC Fylde, Chatham Town and London Bees all dropped down to Division 1. Hull City won the Division 1 North. Sporting Cowser, the Division 1 Midlands. They beat, this was so tight. They beat Loughborough Lighting. Loughborough Lighting, that electrical company in the Midlands. Sorry, they beat Loughborough Lightning on goal difference. AFC Wimbledon, the Division 1 South East, and Exeter City, the Division 1 South West. All of them, that means, will be playing Premier Division football next season. Congratulations for brilliant campaigns. Meanwhile, the Women's National League is going to say goodbye to Chester Street Town, FC United of Manchester, Sheffield FC, Leek Town, Cambridge City, Haywards Heath Town, Torquay United and Chelsea, who've all been relegated into Tier 5 of the pyramid. Quick question for someone who wants to take it. This is from Nolly, who messaged us on X. Following Luann Worsey's fantastic breakout season at Nottingham Forest, which included an England call-up, is Tier 3 a viable place for a young Tier 2 player to develop their game?
Yeah, I think in terms of exposing a young player to playing minutes, so they get as much opportunity to learn the game and different types of game as well. Whether you're playing for a team that dominates the ball or doesn't, you learn a lot of new skills in and out of possession. But obviously, as they keep progressing and sort of exceeding their levels, then you want to keep trying to progress that level and play at a higher level. So ultimately, that's the challenge and the goal for any young player going through the divisions.
Yeah, I agree with Anita. I think any young player, challenge them in women's football as early as you possibly can. I think that's how you're going to develop and push them on. And obviously getting minutes as well is going to excel their performance and their development. So yeah, I 100% agree.
There you go, Nolly. Question answered. Okay, we've come to that time of the pods. This is what Jenna has been waiting for, the FA Cup preview. Yes. The Adobe Women's FA Cup final, complete with coat, comes to a conclusion next weekend. A new name's going to be etched on the trophy as Manchester United and Tottenham come face to face at a sold-out Wembley Stadium. Anita, this is Manchester United's second FA Cup final in a row, which is pretty impressive. How do they use the experience of last year's match to benefit them? I mean, it's going to be a little bit easier to handle the occasion if you've done it before, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. I think they've walked down that tunnel. They've experienced the kind of atmosphere, the noise that they will have on the day. They've already prepared for an occasion like this before. So the kind of structure of the day leading up to the game in terms of nutrition and fueling and sleep and all of that, of course, they're all professionals, so they're used to it. But, it's different, the adrenaline you feel leading to a cup final day. So they will be able to manage all of those emotions from a psychological perspective. And they'll want to use that experience to go out there and utilize trying to have a fast start, which I think is going to be extremely important for them, that they can get into the game early and kind of establish some form of control in the opening minutes.
Yeah, it feels like they need a little bit of confidence, Suzy, at the minute. Obviously, Mark Skinner under pressure again after that defeat to Liverpool at the weekend. How key is success on Sunday to his future going forward?
Yeah, I sort of said it earlier, didn't I? That I think that they have to win this game. They have to win that trophy for his future at the club to be viable. Like, even if they keep him, I don't think if they lose the FA Cup after the season that they've had, that the authority that he has is going to be very, very strong. Even if they win it, I still think there are questions to be asked there, because I think they're actually quite a one-dimensional side. I think they've got an identity. I think they've got, you can tell a Mark Skinner side, but I think that is quite a one-dimensional thing. And that if managers and teams figure out how to frustrate it or prevent it, there's no plan B. They don't look to the bench often enough for changes. They don't rotate much in season. We've seen players leave expressing how frustrating they found it at the club and things. So there's a lot of things to be worried about there. Obviously, it's not just Mark in that Man United is chaos generally. The men's side is a mess too. Behind the background of the club is chaos at the moment. So you can't put it all on the manager. There's frustrations with the system around it, the resources, all of that kind of stuff too. But when you look at the team on the pitch and the players they've got available and how they rotate or don't rotate and all of those kind of things, it's a minimum. They have to win it for him. He needs that trophy. And I'd say even then it might not be enough.
Chaos behind the scenes, but both the men's and women's teams have reached the FA Cup finals, which is quite impressive when you think about it. Jenna, I was watching you furiously scribbling something down as Suzy was talking there. I'm assuming it's not your shopping list. It might have been something on Mark Skinner. Tell me in a second. But obviously, we know your links to Tottenham. How are you feeling going into the game? And what's the kind of feeling around the club as well leading into it?
Yeah, I think it's been funny around the club, because in all the media conferences, it's been, we're focusing on each game as it comes. But the minute you step in the women's building, there's just this buzz around it. Everyone's just so happy. And I was speaking to some of the players last week in there. They still can't actually believe what's happened, given the state of the club at the end of the season, fighting in a relegation battle. So it's completely turned around. And yeah, it's kind of been an elephant in the room for the last couple of weeks, where Robert's adamant he wants to focus on the match ahead. And I think this week they can now enjoy the build up. I think I was actually speaking to Roz and Becky on Tuesday, and they're they've been in these positions, not an FA Cup, but they've been to the World Cup. We've got players who, who've had these build-ups to these huge matches before. I think they're going into it as the underdogs. Of course they are. But for me, I think the pressure is fully on Man United, and that suits us. We're all right with being the underdogs. I think they always have been, to be honest. But I think what we've seen this season with this team is a team that has taken points now off of, Arsenal, Man United. They got the draw for the first time ever. I think they were disappointed in the opening game against Chelsea, where they felt they could have come away with something. And then obviously they've beaten Man City in a penalty shootout to get, on the road to Wembley. So they actually got a lot of confidence within this squad, got experience now. You've got Becky Spencer, England, Drew Spence, Martha Thomas as well. And I think all a fully fit team now at the right time. And they're going to just go out there and enjoy it. But yeah, there's such a buzz around the club. And, I've played at the club. I've been a Spurs fan, and it's not a usual feeling for a Tottenham fan. But no, I think there's no pressure on them. I think they'll go out there, and I think Robert has instilled this kind of belief in them that even if things aren't going their way, if they stick to the way that he wants to play, they end up getting the results. And we've seen that time and time again this season. So yeah, really excited and can't wait for Sunday.
He's done such an amazing job, hasn't he, Robert Villaham, this season? He's been fantastic. Okay, those dreaded predictions are coming again. Now, The question is Jenna going to vote tactically this time? Or is she going full on with her heart and just thinks, sod the fact that this pod is terrible at predictions, I'm just going all in. Go on, Jenna.
2-1 Tottenham.
Oh, love it. Anita?
I'm sorry, Jenna. I'm going 2-1 Man United. And purely because I think Grace Clinton is a big miss. I really do.
Huge. Can't play
Absolutely gutted
against
for
her
her, by the
parent
way.
club. I'm so honestly, the season that she's had, it's so cruel.
Yeah.
So cruel.
Yeah.
Suzy?
So I'm not going to be tactical here, despite the fact that, obviously as an Arsenal fan, the idea of Spurs winning a trophy bores me. I actually really like the team. I actually really like Robert. I think he's a great manager. There's a lot to like there, which is like an internal conflict that is eating me alive. But I think there's a lot to be said in the fact that United have this insane fear of losing this game, I think. And I think Spurs, as Jenna has beautifully outlined, how are delighted to be there, have nothing to lose, and I think that's quite a big conflict. So I actually think Spurs could get it. They're coming off the back of two draws, having come from behind in those games and fought back. So they know that they can come back into games if they concede. So if Man United score, they're not necessarily worried about it. Whereas United are coming off the back of that defeat to Liverpool as well. I just think the momentum of the teams is there for Spurs to do something special. Bethany England scored 4 in 4. Things are starting to go right for them at the right time of the season for this match to be played.
That's so tactical. She hates Spurs and she's terrible at predictions. She's done it on purpose.
Genuinely not this time. Genuinely not.
Right. Well, we shall see. I don't hate Spurs. I love Spurs, and I'd love for you to win, Jenna, just because we're mates. And I would be so delighted for you. So I'm going for a Spurs win. Sorry, Man United fans. By the way, I just want to give a bit of a shout out to a post that I saw earlier on from Team Grassroots. They post, "This is my daughter, Sophie Dennington. I'm so proud of her. She started reffing at 15 years old, struggled so much in school, and at age 13, she had the reading and spelling age of a 7-year-old. But with the help of her school, she managed to pass her GCSEs. She was diagnosed with dyslexia, but still got her dream. She's running the line for the FA Cup Women's Final. A message to all the young refs out there: you can do it if you put your mind and your heart into something." Good luck to Sophie running the line at Wembley. What an incredible achievement. Listen, finally, congratulations to 3 Lionesses who lifted league titles with their respective clubs this weekend. Georgia Stanway scoring as Bayern Munich lifted the Frauen Bundesliga for a second time in a row. And both Lucy Bronze and Kira Walsh were crowned champions of Spain once again, with Barcelona securing yet another Liga F title. Before we go, allow us to indulge ourselves just a little bit. We don't do this very often, and we get so many lovely messages in, but I want to highlight a couple that we've had in from listeners that have really brightened our week, and our WhatsApp group's been pinging away. We've been chuffed to bits, and we're going to start with a big shout out to Hebe, who sent us an email with her personal supercomputer workings out for the end of the season. This is what she said. "Hello, Faye and Suzy. I'm a 13-year-old girl who's obsessed with football, but especially the WSL, and I love your podcast so much. I had a major operation on my spine in January, so it's been a bit of a tough time recently, but your podcast has really helped me get through my recovery so far. Every Tuesday, which used to be my least favourite day, I spend the whole morning checking my Spotify to see whether the podcast has been uploaded, and every time it is thoroughly enjoyable, so thank you so much. Shout out to my dad, who's listened to the pod from the very beginning." Hi, Dad. Because of my operation, I haven't been at school, so I've had a lot of time on my hands. Obviously, I've used it to watch as much football as humanly possible, but also to do the work of the supercomputer thing myself. So since the season is weeks away from ending, I thought I could predict the next 11 matches of the top 6 to work out who would win the WSL. As we already know, the Women's Football Weekly is not known for amazing predictions, but me and my dad aren't actually too bad. I'm only bad at predicting Arsenal games, most likely because I'm extremely biased. She says, #Gooner forever. So I spent yesterday evening predicting the rest of the WSL top 6, and I've linked my results, and she sent us this beautifully crafted table. Lovely handwriting you've got, Hebe, by the way. Again, I just want to say thank you for this pod. I enjoy listening to your views so much, and I cannot wait for next season. With love from Hebe.
Oh,
So honestly, we got that this week and we're absolutely delighted. So this is what Hebe has predicted. Manchester City win, 58 points. Chelsea in second, also on 58 points, but 2 goals behind Manchester City. So City winning on goal difference. Amazing. Arsenal in third on 47 points. Manchester United securing fourth on 38 points. Liverpool with 35 and Spurs with 33. And she's highlighted City win. Brilliant stuff. Well, we will shout you out next week, Hebe, to see whether that prediction is right. Not next week, the week after the end of the season. You know what I mean? The weeks are all blurring into one. But thank you so much for taking the time out to message us. We really appreciate it. And a big thank you and shout out as well to Ros Morton, who messaged us over on Instagram to say, just wanted to say the episode on schedules, etc. with FIFA Pro was the best footy pod I've ever listened to. I've always been a union rep in my workplaces, so there might be some bias there. Really informative and taking us beyond the headlines to consider the impact of the growth of the game at all levels. No mean feat and very deftly done. Congrats to all involved. Thank you so much, Ros. That means a lot. If you've not listened to that episode, by the way, you can, of course, download it. It's in our feed and it's also in the Guardian Football Weekly feed as well if you want to take a listen. Listen, I've absolutely loved today's pod. It's been such good fun. Jenna, I wish you all the luck in the world for Sunday. Keeping fingers crossed for you.
Thank you.
Anita, a pleasure as always. Take care.
thanks for having me, Faye.
Suzy Rack, I'll miss you at the final. I'll miss you at Wembley, our little place.
I know, right? What am I going to do with myself? Just be sat round the thing, like eating the food, and that's about it.
I know. I'm sorry. I will be watching Don't Hate Me from a beach. Enjoying it, but very differently.
Definitely hate you.
Yes, sorry. That's fine. I'll take the hate. I haven't had a beach holiday for God knows how long. I need the break. Keep having your say by sending in your questions via X or emailing us at womensfootballweekly@theguardian.com. And as ever, a reminder to sign up for our bi-weekly women's football newsletter. All you need to do is search Moving the Goalposts Sign Up. In Tuesday's edition, Joey Lynch wraps up the A-League season, the good, the bad and the ugly. The Guardian Women's Football Weekly is produced by Sophie Downey and Holly Fisher. Music composition was by Laura Iredale. Our executive producer is Sal Ahmad. Women's Football Weekly is supported by Google Pixel, the only phone engineered by Google and official mobile phone of Arsenal Football Club, Liverpool Football Club and the England teams. Engineered by Google, the Pixel 8 and Pixel 8 Pro are fast and secure with the most advanced Pixel cameras yet. And Google AI powers amazing features for photos and video so you can get even closer to the game. Search Google Store to find out more.
This is The Guardian.